I'm Ken Assison. I wrote a microbiome prescription website. I want to show you a new coming feature. It's partially up. It should not really be used until at least January 1st because I have some work to do on it. Mainly because the data I'm using is a little bit stale and incomplete. Okay, so let me explain how, first of all, I started it. I had the data sitting there, but somebody asked, okay, for modifiers, how does prunes affect your microbiome? Well, the reality is there are no studies for prunes that I have become aware of, or showing what bacteria shifts happen. However, what I do have, I'll flip over here to advanced, is if we go over here and I look at foods with flavonoids, I have a variety of things. For example, let's suppose I look at something like apple. Let's go down here and apple, cider, dessert. Actually, let's look for sauce. Applesauce right there. Okay, if I go down here and click on that one, I go over and I see what the research labs for food, not microbiome, but for food, indicate is in it, how much dietary fiber, how much fructose, glucose, etc. I don't have a study for it. I do have a study for many of the items here, not all of them, but for many of them. So the first thing was I told the person, sorry, I don't have any. I didn't like what I was saying. Look, I may not have studies explicitly for prunes, but I can do a synthetic computation of what may happen, which is probably better than randomly picking something out of the air or of our logic. Basically, if I make some very simple, straightforward things and stated that, okay, if I know what aspartic acid does, and it's 0.028, and I know what alanine does at 0.06, if I take its impact, multiply by 0.06 or by 0.28 for each one of them, and then take their aggregate all together, I have a good proxy, a good simulation for what the impact of applesauce is going to be. Imagine that. Now, to do it, I have to make simplifying or simplistic assumption. One is I'm going to have to assume that impact is for every substance. Every substance is the impact is the same per unit per milligram per gram. Same amount. So that if you have something like calcium, which is 4, and arginine, which is 0.005, the impact for calcium is going to dominate over that of arginine. That's probably not correct. For many chemicals, a small amount has a big impact. The best example is the nasty chemical called sarin, which is derived from beans, which is very toxic and will keep it with a very low dosage. Whereas having a whole bean doesn't. It's this particular extract. So the simplifying assumption is that we can get a reasonable approximation by just taking the amount per gram, multiplying by which bacteria it has, and assuming that it's a linear relationship across the way. Why do we assume it? Because we have no other way of determining it. We don't have the data to say, oh, well, this is 1 milligram of this substance does the same impact of 10 milligrams of something else. We don't have that. So we go down and we go through all the lists, look them up, etc. So that gives us a way to estimate it. So now if you go and go back to lookup modifiers and type in applesauce, it's there magically. And notice the keyword, synthetic impact from components. And basically that will be hyperlinked to this video and some notes in time. But basically it says, okay, here and what is the impact? Click view and it's the same as before. Certain things increases and decreases. and the amount, and I will be showing the degree of impact in the advanced settings, advanced display level, once I get the numbers updated. Right now, it just increases or decreases as in a net positive or net negative, be it small or little. You can't see at the moment. That will be rectified as data is updated. Now, furthermore, if you go over to changing microbiome, and you go down to, let's say, 1, and go down, we have inferred citation, and we have the synthetic citation as an option. Don't trust the suggestions at the moment because it's not enough data. I got to update the data. I got to do a resynthesize of A to B, B to C. So I got all my 3,000 substances which we have. I have 1,000 substances from the list. I now have to start mapping them across, which is going to take me time. I don't expect it to be done until the new year. Plus, I want to update the data. The data I used is from about 4 years ago when I first put up the site, maybe 5 years ago. The data has since been updated, so I want to get in the latest data so it has more items and it's more accurate measurements. So synthetic citation, if I wanted that, then I'll just go and click that, get suggestions, and now it will go and indicate what it is. I notice food, all sorts of foods are now showing up there. Fresh dillweed is the number 1 food, and then we have food to avoid. So voila, we have it. Now, the numbers here are not really compatible with the other numbers. However, in terms of consensus, relatively speaking, it is because everything is scaled. However, the substances and the values calculated for consensus report for a here are huge compared to the numbers which are coming from the other one. In other words, these are going to absolutely dominate it. They are not comparable. 2 different methods of calculation, and you can take a look at it and whatever. So again, it's purely experimental. It's saying, why can't we do something? Well, we can't because we don't have the highest degree of quality of data. We do have enough data to make an educated guess of how this particular food is going to impact it. Whether or not it is correct or not, I do not know. But what we do know is that it's likely more accurate than randomly making hypotheses. It is a hypothesis, but it is a calculated hypothesis from actual citations of studies, and it's just a matter of doing a mapping. Again, sometimes the substances in the food may be contradictory to each other, and since we don't know the ratio for impact of one to the other, we may well shift it in the wrong direction simply because we don't know the relative magnitude of each one of the substances versus a particular bacteria. So I'm not going to confuse you anymore because it's basically a work in progress. I need to go and get the latest data from my sources, which is the US Department of Agriculture as well as EU equivalent departments. Get all the data in, update with the latest, and then get a new mapping done and a new calculations done. And then it'll be available for people to try. Again, it's experimental. It may be interesting for some people to see. And until I get feedback from people actually trying it, take it with a big gram or 10th of a gram of sodium chloride, i.e. a grain of salt. Okay, that's it.